Okay, now let's take a look at the action of steroid hormones, okay? So remembering again that they're hydrophobic, okay, they're going to easily cross cell membranes. So in general, they're not going to bind receptors that are on the membrane of the target cell, okay? Um, this does show a little bit of that, but don't worry too much about that. I want you to focus on this, okay? This is kind of more common, okay? So generally, steroid hormones will just diffuse across the plasma membrane of its target cell, okay? And then it will bind to a receptor inside the cell, an intracellular receptor, okay? From there, it then can go ahead and lead to what we call genomic effects. It's going to lead to changes in transcription and translation in the target cell. And this is going to be sort of a slower process than the signal transduction cascades that we saw in response to peptide hormones, okay? And it's going to be kind of a more long-lasting effect, okay? So let's take a look at an example of this. Okay, so here's an example of a steroid hormone, aldosterone, which I mentioned in a couple slides ago, that it's involved in salt balance. Okay, so let's just start by looking at the structure of aldosterone, right? So first you can see this and you can kind of see the similarity to the structure of cholesterol, okay? Let's take a look at how aldosterone works, okay? So aldosterone is going to be in sort of floating around in the bloodstream. It's not shown here, but it will be accompanied by a carrier protein, okay? Aldosterone is made by a gland in your body called the adrenal gland. It's made by the outside part of it, which is called the adrenal cortex, and it's going to act on the kidney. Okay, so what we're looking at here, here's the bloodstream. This right here is basically the kidney, okay? What you're looking at on the right in yellow is the liquid that's going to become our urine, right? We're going to excrete this from our body. This layer of cells here is going to regulate what makes it, what stays in our body, basically, and what leaves our body through the urine, okay? Okay, so aldosterone is here in the blood, okay? As I mentioned in the last slide, as is typical for steroid hormones, aldosterone is going to just cross the cell membrane of these cells right here, okay? It's going to bind to an intracellular receptor, okay? And that intracellular receptor then is going to go ahead and, well, that complex, I guess, of the hormone and the receptor are going to go in, basically they become a transcription factor, okay? And they're going to affect transcription and translation, okay? So looking specifically at this specific example, we're gonna see the transcription and translation, so basically the manufacture of new pumps and new channels by this cell, okay? Those new pumps and new channels are going to be inserted into the membrane of this cell, and that's going to have an effect on what ions are going to be able to cross this cell, right? So basically in this example, I'm not going to go into the details, but basically it's going to, because we're adding these new channels here, it's going to allow this cell to absorb more sodium. Okay, so that basically wraps up our discussion of steroid hormones. Just to review, right? Synthesis and storage. Remember that steroid hormones are going to be synthesized from cholesterol. They're synthesized on demand because you can't store them in the cell, right? Because they would just diffuse across cell membranes, okay? They're released from the parent cell by simple diffusion, right? So they're just made and then they diffuse out of the cell, okay? This cell that we're talking about is the endocrine cell that's making the hormone, okay? They're transported in the blood bound to carrier proteins because they're hydrophobic, right? They're hydrophobic, they need that carrier protein to help them dissolve more easily in the blood. As a result of that, they have a longer half-life, right? They've got that protection that's provided by the carrier protein that protects them from the enzymes that are going to degrade them, okay? Their receptors are located intracellularly in the cytoplasm or the nucleus. Occasionally you'll have some membrane receptors to steroid hormones too, but I don't want you to worry about that. In general, you know, kind of the vast majority have receptors in the cytoplasm or in the nucleus, okay? And then the response you get in your target cell is you get transcription and translation. So these what we call genomic changes, these sort of slower, more long-lasting changes in the target cell, okay? And that's gonna lead to new protein synthesis, okay? And then here are a few examples of the steroid hormones. Okay, so that's basically it for steroid hormones. These are your learning goals for this part of the lecture, and here is your vocabulary. All right, see you in the next video.